Hello, good evening, good afternoon, good day, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to the Black Belt Academy of Surgical Skills. My name is David O'Regan. I'm a professor in the Medical Education Research and Development Unit here in the Faculty of Medicine at the University of Malaya. We're coming to you live from Kuala Lumpur. Dr. Abir is in India and is in production, and my fellow senseis, Chris Cuddy and Prof. Sile, are online to join us in the conversation later. And Chris is in Sheffield in the UK, and Prof. Sile is in the Kingdom of Brunei. The first thing I want to comment on this evening is that I'm delighted our founder sensei and good friend, John Taylor, is recovering well from his heart operation on Friday. A great relief. Being a cardiac surgeon of yesteryear and knowing the complexities of it, I'm delighted that he's making good recovery, and I hope will be on his feet soon. So, John, we're wishing you well. The other bit of news is that I'm really excited that our green belts have taken to learning how to become senseis. Part of the Black Belt Academy is building a program to learn how to teach as you're learning the skills. And this has passed all my expectations. And together, Ken, Adesh, and Shavita, we will be live next week discussing their insights and learning to train surgical skills. Likewise, I'm delighted they were joined at the weekend by the other two green belts who ran a student program looking at stitching, and we have come up with other models to simulate cardiac operations. Well, we've discussed before, the most important grip of humans is this: the ability to bring your fingers together with a lightness of touch. And I've said, stroke your face with your knuckles, and that's not so light compared to stroke your face with your fingers. The anatomy of the forearm is stacked against us as far as lightness of touch is concerned. And for the first instance, I'd like you all just to pinch your forearm like that. That is sore. And in doing that, notice that I'm flexing the distal interphalangeal joints and bringing the tips of my fingers together, and they're blanching. That is generating a pressure of at least 30 newtons. The flexion of your DIP joints is carried out by two of the largest muscles of the forearm. This is the Popeye muscles, okay, there. And the Popeye muscles are the two muscles in the deepest compartment of the forearm: flexor digitorum profundus and flexor pollicis longus. And they give this claw-like grip. And this grip is used in Mission Impossible. Tom Cruise can hang off helicopters using this, and cliff climbers can hang and climb on their fingers. Indeed, being able to hold the tsuba of my katana in its sire with the thumb against the weight of a person trying to pull it out is possible just by doing that. These muscles are not required in surgery. What we need to think about is extending the fingers, extending the DIP joints. And for those of you who've been part of the Black Belt Academy in Malaysia, this is actually our freestyle sign, because it's the lumbricals that extend the DIP joints and flex the metacarpal phalangeal joints. Like that, 90 degrees, and enables you to bring the fingers together. The other thing is to point out is that when you're pressing, as soon as your fingernails blanch like that, that's pressure. That is not feeling. And this translates into clinical examination as well. As soon as you start pressing, that's pressure. That's not feeling. And we can understand why these muscles are so powerful if we come over and look at the anatomy of the forearm. Yes, I think anatomy, physiology, and pathology are the reading, writing, arithmetic of medicine. But the ulna here and the radius here have got this deep groove on the front, down both sides, with an interosseous membrane. And the interosseous membrane is on this sharp edge there and on the sharp edge there. And across here, you've got the flexus digitorum profundus, and here the flexor pollicis longus. And they all go into the base of the terminal phalanx, which you can see is spatulated, and that enables you to grip like that. That's not what we require. What we're asking you is the lumbricals, the only bones of the body that haven't got any bony insertion, or only muscles of the body with no bony insertion or origin. There you go. And they have peculiar properties that are more than straightening the hands. They're balancing the tension and proprioception. So the other important thing to realize in anatomy of the hand, in that position, try it yourself, hold your hand like that, you try and grip. You can't grip, okay? And in that position, you have effectively neutralized all the muscles of the forearm. I can't grip. To grip, I have to extend a little bit, and extending, I then, you note my fingers, now form the fist, enabling me to grip. This is used in self-defense to get somebody to release a weapon, is hyperflex the wrist, and they have to let go. You cannot grip like that. But this is exactly the position that your hand should be in when operating. And hence, standing at the table, we're like this, because now we can focus on our fingers and feel of the instruments. So I'll put my skeleton away and bring you back over to another important point, because as we're stitching, and we've gone through a lot of stitching, we're using forceps, but the forceps should never, ever, ever be used to grab or deliver the needle. It may indeed hold the needle if the needle is not being held by the tissues. But here, I've used non-crushing forceps, and these are DeBakey forceps, and we'll come down closer. DeBakey being a Lebanese American surgeon, Texas heart, and he is famous, a very, very famous cardiac surgeon. But we've got here a fine row of teeth. I can run my thumb between the two rows, interdigitating with another fine row of teeth this side. And those are called crushing forceps. But look what's happened when I applied this to the banana. When you're using and lifting the skin, and this is thanks to my fellow sensei, Chris Cuddy, use a skin hook to lift it up. But if I lift it up, I'm sure you can see that there's a full thickness crush injury to this banana. Now, if you were applying that to the bowel, you'd have a mucosal massacre, when if you applied it to an artery or vessel, it'll be endothelial cell genocide. There you go. Look at that. Full thickness, black. And that's not even tooth forceps. Tooth forceps are Adson's forceps, neurosurgeon, one little rat tooth one side, interdigitating with two rat teeth the other side, like incisors. These were used by a neurosurgeon not to pick your brains, but because the dura is one of the thickest, most fibrous tissues in the body. And you certainly don't apply that to a banana. So this is what I applied to the banana earlier. There you go, a bigger version of the Adson's forceps. One tooth, two rat teeth, and there you go. Look at that. Teeth marks there. But not only that, if I drag this on the skin, see that? It scratches. And if I was grabbing the edge and pull it away, it scratches. Vicious instrument. There you go. And often, when people are learning to stitch, they're paying no attention whatsoever to these forceps, causing really serious harm. And if you think of the surface area, and I'm just going to take it as 5 millimeters squared, and think of pressure equals force over area, and I'm generating 30 newtons of force. Put that over 5 millimeters squared. Now, it does amuse me when I ask people to work out pressure equals force over area, which is Newton meters squared, and ask people to calculate 5 millimeters squared to meters squared. That's the sad thing about education. 1 year out of school, having done maths and physics at school, they're not able to convert 5 millimeters squared. 1,000 millimeters in a meter square is a million. So 5 millimeters squared is 5 times 10 to the minus 6 meters squared. And when you go to minus 6 as a denominator, that becomes a million. 6 million at least Newton meters squared. Being from the UK, we talk about pounds per square inch. That is, car tire pressure is 30. This is 870 pounds per square inch, or 29 times your car tire pressure. So the lightness of touch in mathematics and physics, the flexor digitorum, profundus, and flexor pollicis longus, is causing grievous tissue harm. And that's why we have to actually hold the forceps and extend our fingers and use them carefully. And even if it's got teeth, you don't grab the skin edge. I'm reflecting the edges, lifting them up. Even these small forceps are going to scratch and tear. People do not focus on that. So the other thing is, forceps do need to be used, and I suppose they're the most common instrument on the tray. So these are non-ratcheted forceps. The ratcheted forceps, like Babcock's tissue forceps, have got ratchets on them, and they're for holding tissues. The Lanes have got claws, the Babcocks are smooth edge, but even with the ratchets, you never put it on more than one ratchet, because that too is doing damage. But the forceps are an instrument that you should be adept using both hands, left and right. And as you're assisting, you're passing it from one hand to the other. So an assisting skill is to recognize that you're never reaching across the midline and your forceps goes to the other side. But your forceps are used by the surgeon, the assistant, second assistant, and the nurses in theatre. So everybody has got to be able to use forceps. For those of you who are wanting to cut and feel that you've got a shaky hand, using the forceps as a fob, the fob being that leather-ended stick used by sign writers, you use the forceps to balance your scissors. So you can take your scissors into a field, supported by your forceps, open it up, cut, and withdraw. You never come in like that. But your forceps can help you steady your instruments going in. So the first thing is that we need to actually practice precision. And there are a number of exercises that the Black Belt Academy has developed, which are fun. And the first one, and one of my favorite, is the mix of mustard, coriander seeds, and pepper seeds in here. And the smell is fantastic. But being able to pick them up, and because it's a two-handed process, we will use two hands to pick them up. There are fennel seeds in here. And oopsie, where's that? That is mustard seeds are smaller. There's a fennel. And we've got peppers. And these are really hard and will skid away if you grab at them. So you have to pick them up lightly. There's the mustard seeds are smaller. And the coriander seeds, the stripy seeds in here. Well, we've got some coriander seeds around here. We can pick up the seeds, and you can make a game out of this. Somebody can call out the seeds, and these are dry seeds and easy to pick up. Making it more difficult, we can try another seed. And I've got some lentils. And the lentils, as for the beginning, pick up and put in the spoon. But once you're adept at doing that, I want you to pick the lentils up and drop them in straws. If you drop it on the plate, you're out. And if you grab it, you'll see it'll run off. And you can't hurry this, and you can't grab it. And this is a lightness of touch. So any seed you like is useful. Let's escape from the left hand here. And picking the seeds up, you can number the straws, color them, and turn this also into a game. The next exercise is, what about different colored rice? So let's take those spoons out of the way. And again, the rice grains, if you pick up a rice grain and I put it against the top there, you see the rice grain is longer than the diameter of the straw. So this time, one has to think about orientating the rice grains into the straw. Now, when using the forceps, your hand positions like that, but think of it as a pickup. You can use your wrist and your elbow to move all the directions that are required, but you're not gripping the forceps. You're lightly holding them, and this is an exercise of dropping rice grains. Now, I've got different colored ones in here, and again, with this multi-grain rice, you can get somebody to say black, and you can again make a game out of it, black left, or 12, 3, 6, 9, and call it out. And Chevaliers in Sicily has got and put this to a metronome, and we will be putting that on our app, which will come out shortly as a game, and you can test yourself against time. All of these are simple mechanisms of ensuring and practicing your precision and pickup skills. We ran this skill at the Association of Surgeons and Training meeting, and we had 8 grains of rice, 4 straws, and we asked people to pick up the rice and put them in sequence in the straws. And I think our record score was 16 seconds or 15.43 seconds, picking up the rice and dropping it in the straw. But we do not teach speed, In the Black Belt Academy, we teach precision and accuracy, which is more important. The speed will come with practice. As in martial arts, there's technique before power and speed. If you don't get the technique right, you injure yourself. Similarly, in surgery, if you don't get your posture right, you are going to injure your neck. As we heard from Dr. Gita Lau, in your spine, but you're also inadvertently going to be damaging the tissues with your forceps. So that was fun. But you can think of anything and everything available in the supermarket. So they didn't have any peppers, but here we go. Now we've got slightly damp and wet pips. You can explore down the holes and reach in. The red pepper is a good one because you can open up the top and pick out the seeds as we go. These are wet and slippery. Again, if you pick them out too hard, they will run away from you. Doing it with both hands, of course, because both hands need practice. I'm reaching across the midline, so I should not. So I am going to invite you to use your imagination when you go in the next supermarket and have a look. I thought we had some chilies actually in the fridge for cooking. Just to put a plug in, as I said, cooking. All of this material will be going into cooking tomorrow. So I would like to also say what we're doing in the Black Belt Academy is also encouraging low fidelity models that are sustainable. And it's one of the reasons why we don't wear gloves for this, because I think when you're practicing, yes, I accept that your feel might be slightly attenuated with gloves, but I don't want you losing the practice and feel by putting on badly fitting gloves. That is a different aspect altogether. If your gloves are too tight, your fingers will end up numb and you will not be able to feel. So the secret is for double gloving is that you put on the larger size, a half size bigger first, and then the smaller size. And that avoids your fingers going numb and the problem with feeling the tissues, because surgery is all about feel, as Lloyd Barclay Moynihan said. So that's the pickup. Often we're having to peel tissues away. So the easy one here, relatively easy, is can you peel off the skin of a tomato without damaging the flesh underneath? And that comes away too easily. But it is a beginner test. And I'm lifting it off without damaging the tomato underneath. Now, Suja in Baghdad came up with a more intriguing and difficult example. And this was using a boiled new potato. And a boiled new potato here, I'm going to be trying to peel off that thin layer of skin of the potato. And it really depends how long you cook it for, but I'm wanting to peel off that layer without grabbing, damaging the potato underneath. So this is like peeling the tomato. See there? I grab the edge. Again, some accuracy in picking up thin bits of tissue. And if you touch the potato, you know that your accuracy in picking up is not as it ought. And we practice until we can't get wrong. I'm just going to give my forceps a wipe because they are getting sticky and not enabling us very well. So Let's get another tomato. And again, all this is sustainable and will be used. So let's try this tomato. There you go. It's a bit like doing dressings or taking off on an inflammatory granular surface, and you're taking off, peeling tissues off in layers without damaging the tomato underneath. Sometimes you can use your forceps to gently stroke along the edge to develop. Again, it's just putting that extra little tension across that layer for fine dissection and developing a tissue plane. So the forceps now become a very important tool in the surgical armamentarium. And especially if you've got forceps with an assistant, providing traction and counter traction all the time. So if there's a large surface there, the assistant would hold the large surface and you can develop the plane. The forceps can be used also to gently develop the plane, as I'm doing there. What about this potato? We'll come back. Okay, there you go. What we want to see, that's better. The potato, you see my forceps is underneath. I'll bring it into view. There you go. Thin, wafer thin tissues of the boiled potato, and being able to tease this off gently in strips. And can you pick it up without damaging the potato underneath? Again, it gives you immediate feedback. As you can see, there's a bit of potato there. But now it's coming off cleanly. And again, I can use the end of my forceps to tease and develop that plane without damaging the potato. There you go. It's almost the same thing as was using my knife, really. But not tearing or damaging the tissue underneath. Taking. So all these are fun skills to actually use and practice at home and to build your confidence using forceps. And I'm using forceps in both hands for this because both hands need training. And as I was doing it and picking up the seeds, I was thinking to myself, oh, left hand is not as good as right hand, which is obviously very common. But you need to be adept with both hands to be able to pick that up without damage to tissues underneath. So there we go. We've got peeling, precision with seeds, rice, straws, making games, putting a stopwatch to it. We'll have some music and a timer on our app for you to practice this and make it fun. Picking up seeds from a depth. Here we go. Wet, sticky seeds. Now this is challenging because just imagine you're taking out foreign material out of a wound or picking out stones. Now we're going to take out from here individual tomato seeds. And the fact that it's wet and sticky, this now becomes akin to wet and sticky tissues. One could spend hours having fun doing this. And again, I would like to hear from you and examples. You can put them in the chat put them, email us, or put them on Facebook, pictures of your models. In fact, we're going to open a competition for the most innovative low fidelity simulation. Now, I personally feel that organic material offers you a better range of tissues, and it's akin to the human body. Look at that. I don't want to put you off tomatoes at all, but when I'm doing this, I'm thinking of my days in general surgery as well. And one has to be diligent about picking out the foreign body. Remembering at any time, these are sharp instruments because bang, it can stab. All right, I can stick it in and cause a problem. So on solid organs in particular, that is quite easily done. So the piece de resistance of our practice in forceps skills comes with a plate of spaghetti. So there's a spaghetti. This is well cooked. I'll demonstrate to you that it's well cooked because there you go. If I grab it, it's minced up. So the exercise that we are looking for to demonstrate that you have control, feel, patience, whatever you want to call it, for forceps. And we will do this with a plate of spaghetti. And I'm going to make sure I take out one strand, not breaking it. There you go. And it's useful, little trick for this, to stop it sticking on the plate. I'm going to pour a little bit of water on the plate because that enables it to move around and won't get sticky. Did I lose a bit of that there? Maybe. So the idea here is really we need to tie a reef knot. So reef knot, remember, is right over left, left over right. So right, I'm going to pick up gently. And pick up gently and bring it across right and get the general idea of this. And because I want to do a double knot, I will going to lift this up, put down. Oopsie, almost, failed, caught it. One down. Here we go again. Another spaghetti. It is that easily done, all right? It is that easily done. So this is why I love this exercise. I haven't done it for a little while, I'm afraid. And I was just thinking to myself, this evening, I haven't done it for a while. I did it last time we were doing forceps skills. So even by pulling it like this, I have to be aware of the tension that I'm pulling. I can't grab it too hard. And that gives me space now. Oopsie, caught the end, broke it off. Do I have enough space here to take this over the other side? Okay. One tie, and there you go. It broke. And another one. That's why I've got a plate of spaghetti. Okay. I've got a plate of spaghetti. So we've had one go. I think at our last forceps session, I managed to get 3 knots in it. Which is extremely difficult. A little bit there. I hope you will now accept that is a knot. And that looks like a cross knot because they're not sitting properly. It is a cross knot, but I've got 2 ties in there. I pulled it over, and there you go. I've tied a knot in the spaghetti. But the great thing is about a plate of spaghetti, I can be busy here all evening frying it. And it is actually from the moment you cook it to taking it out of the pan, putting it on the plate, it is always at risk of breaking. And just to prove on that bit, there you go, slice it. So let's try something really hard. I'm going to use some tooth forceps this side and see if that actually is possible to gently use tooth forceps without. I'm going to use tooth forceps in my left hand. Okay, tooth forceps in my left hand, ladies and gentlemen. There you go. We've got 1 tie, certainly. Oopsie, it's breaking just at that edge because I pulled it over too tight. But that's a tooth forceps. So I can go on all evening having fun with this. And perhaps one of our senseis wants to come in and start the conversation about forceps skills and inviting the audience, because I do have to have one more go, I'm afraid. So mindful of your time and learning, as I have one more go and try this one more time. One of my senseis, Chris or Prof. Sile, would you like to actually engage the audience in a conversation and observation about these skills? 2 forceps, piece of spaghetti. 1 tie is relatively easy, but 2 ties becomes right or left, left. There we go. 2 forceps, 1 hand, left hand, regular forceps, reef knot in spaghetti. And that is the skill that I'm going to be asking of our black belts. And what it is testing is the right hand, left hand coordination, lightness of touch on both hands, because as you can see, the spaghetti is totally unforgiving. Visible feedback immediately breaks. And it's this why I get excited about these models, is because they are giving you immediate feedback on what you're doing. And no synthetic material could do that. Yes, they are hard. They're meant to be hard. But if your models are hard, I can promise you now, when you go into theatre, it won't be as bad as you might think it is, because you've practiced, you've learned the feel, and you've got your fingers working. What's interesting in the learning and development of this, because I'm still a student, because I'm learning my katana, I'm in theory second dan, awarded in the UK, and I got that because I'd learned all the moves. I'd learned all the moves, but nobody had explained what the moves were doing and the importance of the moves. So the sensei here, Vincent, can spot from the end of the room problems, as I've described before. But what was remarkable after 6 years of study of the katana, I learned something new on Sunday, is that once you've cut, there's a shibari where you take your arm down, and that supposedly, and I was told, is discarding the blood. And you go like that. But Vincent actually was told in calm, saying, you don't do that because their blood will go flying off all over the place. And it's disrespectful. And the other thing he said is that it's actually, this movement should be considered a cut. So you take it out and stop at the bottom. But when you stop at the bottom, and I look at my hand at the bottom, which I didn't realize, and this is pertinent to the blade, when I look down at the blade, I should just see the back of the sword and not the blade itself. And therefore, the cut has been correct. Nobody had explained that to me before, and that's after 6 years of training. So in many respects, I was then reflecting, much of what we do as surgeons is tacit. And the problem is that not many surgeons are able to explain it unless it appears in context. And one of the best things you can do as a learning surgeon when watching somebody operate is watch carefully and say, why did you do that? And that hopefully will prompt the surgeon to explain those little nuances, those little tips and tricks. As another metaphor, you might be aware of Harry Potter. And Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, he found a spell book. And the spell book, turns out, was Severus Snape's spell book. And Severus Snape had written annotation in the book around the spells. So the spell, the didactic teaching was the writing, but with experience had learned to annotate all of those and enhance the movement. And I suppose that's what expert surgeons have done over time, is learned to deconstruct and apply that extra skill. Now, some of it might be down to their own body habitus and the way they stand and operate. But it's interesting that much of it is not actually codified or explained. And it's left me thinking. Anyways, I will throw it open to conversation and invite my fellow senseis, and I think Ardesh is online as well, Prof. Sile and Mr. Caddy to join the conversation, and we can talk about surgical skills. I see Ken, our green belt sensei is there, and others. So any comments and thoughts?
I'll begin.
You
So
will.
my first comment is that's a fiendishly difficult skill that you're trying to teach. And so you have to think about how you're going to integrate that into a black belt grading, because there are so many variables about the material that you're using and the situation in which you're applying it. Because they can practice this for hundreds of hours, but on the day, if it's freshly boiled, you'll get away with it. If it started to dry out, it may crack. But
Oh, yes, yes,
that's real life.
exactly, exactly.
So
And I'll have
we,
a plate of moist spaghetti that's on a wet plate. And as you see here, I've got a full plate of spaghetti, and make sure it's wet, pick it out and pick out a piece. There you go, and off you go. It doesn't matter how long it takes. Let's see what you can do. And as we say, we don't teach speed. But to get to that stage, you need to have gone through all the others and demonstrated competency and feel with your forceps.
just as you were describing your journey on Iado, where you're also a black belt, I've started training in Tai Chi,
Mm-hmm.
and it's completely different to the way that I was taught Taekwondo.
Hmm.
And my grandson went for a taster session and he's now training in Taekwondo. And I
Hmm.
went to the training session and I watched what was happening and I could see everything and know exactly what to say and do to get him to improve.
Hmm.
I then went back to Tai Chi, and what I've realized there is I have to unlearn everything that I learned in Taekwondo to
Right.
relearn Tai Chi.
Really? What
Yeah.
could you name a couple of things you had to unlearn?
Well, so it's the same in lots of martial arts. You put your feet parallel,
Yeah.
okay, not with your toes out and not
Yeah.
with your toes in.
Yeah.
And they have to be exactly shoulder width apart.
Yes.
And so when they are teaching this, you put your other foot next to your toes, twist it through 90 degrees, and then reposition it so your feet are exactly parallel and shoulder
Hmm.
width apart.
Hmm.
And so I'd watched them doing this for weeks and weeks and weeks, and I had no idea why they were doing it and why I was
Hmm.
being taught. And I then had a one-to-one session with a student of Tai Chi, and he
Hmm.
got me to put my feet, and then he put a finger like that, and I fell over backwards. And he said, "Put your feet out." There was no stability there at all. So it was action learning. You actually had to do it and have it
Hmm.
explained to you what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Hmm.
So the opening move is to start with your hands by your side, feet
Hmm.
parallel, to relax,
Hmm.
relax again. And then the idea is to raise your arms up to shoulder level.
Hmm.
As you do that, you have to rotate your arms from being parallel to your thighs to being straight out. And it's where you do that rotation. Because if somebody grabs your arm and you go like that, you move out of it. And then you have to bring them out to 45 degrees exactly.
Hmm.
If you go more than 45 degrees, you fall over backwards. If you bring them less than 45 degrees, you fall forwards. So, so I've been doing this for weeks and weeks and weeks, but nobody had broken it down into the first move. And I thought, this is just amazing.
Well,
But
but that's it. When you apply that, and that's a similar story, isn't it? You
yeah,
apply that to the way we teach and learn surgical skills, and you think something's amiss, isn't there?
yeah,
Because once you've seen it, once it's explained, it's hello, obviously.
yeah.
But
But once
unfortunately,
it comes down to you don't see what you don't see,
exactly,
and you don't know
exactly,
what you don't know.
exactly, exactly. So a lovely story to illustrate the same, actually. And one of the things also, as John, I mentioned John Taylor of recovery, he said the first thing in martial arts, you actually teach people to walk properly. So the walking is transferring the weight from the back foot and keeping your center of gravity stable and vertical all the time. And the propulsion is from your back foot, and your front foot literally slides forward across the ground in the Ido, that much off the ground, sliding forwards. So you don't walk heel, heel, heel like that and drag yourself forward. You're walking with propulsion from the back, and your feet are doing this. And the same as you describe with the Jodo, and it's interesting that there's no force involved. If you get the angles and the momentum going and turning your body, the amount of force you can generate because you've got the correct technique is quite incredible. But it's getting that correctness that is the key.
Yeah. But that's where you require the feedback
Indeed,
and you require a sensei or a teacher that is
indeed.
able to see what's happening and then provide you with feedback so that you understand it. And a lot of it is about how it makes you feel, both physically, mentally, and spiritually. When you realize that you're off balance, and you need to think, how do I get back to balance?
Yes, yes. It's interesting that that way of teaching and understanding has been codified in martial arts for 600 years. And the Royal College of Surgeons of Edinburgh has been around since 1505. And you compare and contrast basic surgical skills courses and the teaching therein with what happens in a dojo.
Yeah, but once again, you can see this,
And you can see it.
but and that's why we're bringing on the next generation of senseis.
Indeed.
And that's why
Indeed.
next week's discussion is going to be so powerful.
I think so.
Because you can watch what's happening in the clinical skills course or in the dojo and think, that's good, or could be better. But
Yes.
how do you get them to see that themselves? And how do you get them to encourage the next generation?
And I think you'll find that our green belts, Ken, Andash, and Shavita, I know Shavita's on and Ken is on as well. Andash is not on, but they will be here next week and they will share with you their journey as well. And it's true, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And we're all learning. We're all on this journey of learning as well. And we're writing a paper together, writing a paper on the same. So we can look forward to that discussion next week. We won't invite them to comment now because it'll ruin next week's presentation. But Prof. Sile, any comments from you?
Hello, Prof. Yeah. Thank you very much. Interesting. It's like to learn the skills with the spaghetti. In fact, we can do this replace with the yellow meal. We have yellow meal in the market.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's that way we used to eat with the meat curry.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's one no need to cook. Just already cook. So
Okay.
and it is not bad. Yeah. So this is a one replacement. And then the second thing is that because I just get it something from my fridge. So this is what we used to practice.
Grapes. Yes.
Grapes.
I'm
Yeah,
pleased you
that's
brought them in. Yes.
variant cystectomy. So you fix with a pin.
Right.
I use a pin, the tudong pin, and then fix on the board, and then you can use this for the peeling of the skin.
Lovely.
Yes. Yeah. I have something in my store. So this is the sesame seeds.
Yes.
Sesame seeds. So you can use black sesame seeds and white sesame seeds. So it's like same like a rice grain. All right. So then you can practice this. And if you really want to get it very, very fine, then you can use the chia seeds. That's the finance, the finance grade. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
And what else I can show you is a different, the corn seeds. You can use the corn seeds.
Indeed, yes.
Yeah. And then you can use guava when it's ripened.
Yes.
Easy to peel it off. And if you have ripened papaya.
Yep.
Yeah, so that you can pick up the papaya seeds.
You've just entered your fridge and covered them, haven't you?
No, I must have fruits, enough fruits. Yeah. So
that's
and
wonderful.
then we can, and they give us the different texture, Prof. The different seeds give the different texture.
Indeed,
so
indeed.
We can practice with that.
The dry seeds, wet seeds, seeds like tomato seeds in the tomato, all of those textures you cannot simulate. And but they're there in the supermarket. So the invitations out to all the watchers is okra seed. Yeah, okra seeds, very good. So there are lots and lots of different ones, and perhaps you'd like to share those on the Facebook page with your picture and name. And I think we'll think of a competition for the most imaginative low fidelity model and test.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you very much, Prof. Seeley. Those are wonderful examples. So any comments from anybody else in the audience?
I'll comment about the forceps. So you were demonstrating the difference between tooth forceps and DeBakey forceps.
Yes.
And both have a role, and you use them in different situations. And so if you're going to be picking up chia seeds, you're not going to have much use for the tooth forceps.
No.
But it's about choosing the right instrument for the right tissue in the right situation.
Indeed.
And that's part of the evolution of your basic surgical skills course. So it's, if you give people a hammer, everything they see is a nail which they want to hit.
Yes.
But they need to realize they can't use DeBakey forceps for every situation.
Yeah.
Well, they can, but there are other ways of doing it.
Yeah, I thought I'd challenge myself this evening with these tooth forceps on the spaghetti.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Well, you did, but it kept breaking.
No, I got the knot in the end.
I know you did, but that was about persistence, perseveration, until you get your final goal.
Indeed.
But it's as I said, it's about learning at each stage on your journey.
Indeed. And that's fun. As in our Fun Fridays and our grading sessions and our face-to-face sessions as well, everybody's learning, and that is really good fun. Good. So I'd like to thank you all for participating. Do practice at home, and next week I'm delighted our first green belt senseis will be joining me as we talk about learning and teaching surgical skills. Their insights and enthusiasm really make me proud. So look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you very much to Dr. Abhiya in India for recording, and be well. Please, could you fill in your feedback forms? We do appreciate them, and look forward to hearing from anybody who's got any ideas and wish us to explore or explain basic surgical skills. So thank you very much indeed, and we'll see you next week. Thank you, Dr. Abhiya. We can stop recording.
Thank you.